Everyone coming out this cold evening. We have a lot of people, Baruch Hashem, listening in on Zoom. Shnas Tovshin Pei Aleph Chanukah here in the White Shul, here in the incredible community. Special schus that we have the unparalleled, renowned Baruch Levine, or Baruch Levine, and the Chosh musical accompaniment. It's a gewaldige schus. We have him here tonight to share with us his sweet nigunim and the most moving melodies to give us gewaldige chizuk and service this Chanukah. I want to take a moment to thank Heshi Freeman, who has put in a lot of time, Levine Nefesh, to making this happen tonight. As well as our wonderful sponsors. We have three categories. Our gold sponsors, Anonymous, Chesky and Leah Badian, Shmuel and Ariella Freund, Shai and Goldie Rubin, a big Ashkoyach Tiskal Mitzvahs of the Kol Tuvsela. Our wonderful silver donors, again Anonymous, as well as Chaim and Bridie Best, Chaim and Shira Dahan, Adam and Joe Kay, the White Shul Sparty Minion, and Tag Smart Connections. Tremendous, of course. And if you haven't made use, it's an incredible organization. As you know, Tag Smart Connections is now positioned, situated from our Sparty Beit Midrash, our Sparty Beit Midrash. And you can make appointments, evening hours and the nighttime hours. An unbelievable schos with the filters and all the enhancements to make sure that everything is done in a kosher v'yoshedik way. Please make use of the incredible Tag Smart Connections at your earliest opportunity. I want to thank as well the broad sponsors for this evening: Anonymous, David Bodenheim, Shimi Muge, Ari and Esther Sat, Shamsi Schiffenbauer, and Avtoli and Leah Solomon. Again, Yasher Kochachem Tiskal Mitzvahs, for sponsoring this Kumzitz Chanukah Tovshin Pei Aleph. Before we begin, an incredible koach hanigin and the music of the miyuchadik Baruch Levine, to share a thought in Chanukah. We know that if we want to understand, we want to penetrate and plumb the depths of what a yontif, what any specific chag is all about, the first place we often look is the name. The name, naturally, the window into a chag's essence, just as the name highlights the etzem mahus. What lies at the crux of any individual, any respective entity. Let's capture the essence by glancing at the name. So asks the Sefer Eretz Tzvi, Chanukah Loshen Chinuch. And Rabbeinu Bachai in his Kadakemach makes that very point as well, that the Shem Chanukah, as based on the posuk in Mishlei Chonuch Lenar, an Indian of Chinuch, Chanukah Loshem Chinuch, but asks the Eretz Tzvi, if you're going to highlight the essence of the Yontif, then turn the spotlight on the Iker, and not on the Tofel. Chinuch, we know, is that which is Machshiras HaKarka. It just gets the ball rolling, it sets things in motion. A child reaches that milestone, the age of Chinuch, 8 to 9 years old, depending on the case. So you machanech that child, so that when you get to 13 or you get to 12, then you're going to be a bar of aschiyuv, and you'll start to commence your obligation in the mitzvahs. The Iker is not the chinuch is merely the zman hachona, to prepare for when you reach that momentous milestone of the bar bas mitzvah state. So why would we name the yontif? Asks the Eretz Tzvi, Chanukah Hashem Chinuch. Tell me something about the Iker of what really lies at the core essence, at the crux, the gist of what this special chag is indeed all about. Writes the Eretz Tzvi, Chazal are telling us, yes, we have all the Rabbozim, the Abu Jerome, Chanukah, Rosh Tevis, and Advin, Meches, Neres, Valach, Kebeis Hillel, the Marsha, Chanukah, Samizbeach, many other Mefarshim, Chanukah, Samishkan, about based on Rabbeinu Bachai, Chonuch Lenari. You know why it's all about Chinuch? Because Chanukah is here to set the stage for the rest of the year. Chanukah is not just saying, let's focus on these 8 days. Chanukah, the aura of Chanukah can carry us forward the whole year long, writes the Avnei Nezer, the Sukkot of a Rebbe. It is unbelievable, safer than Os Hadesha. We know there's no Havdalah after Purim. And likewise, Rabbi say there's no Havdalah after Chanukah. How can you make Havdalah, writes us the Noos HaDeshem, the Or, the Hashpah that excites us, those glorious metaphysical sparks. The Hashpah of Chanukah is there to carry us throughout the Hemshech Hashanah, the Shar Yemos Hashanah. What carries us? What elevates us? That's Chanukah. It's indeed the Zman of Chinuch, because it's setting the stage, it's getting us all ready. And for the rest of the year, we have to go ahead and chap and be collate, absorb and glean all the myriad nitzotzos in the Hashpah of the Chag. Inculcate it, ingrain it, imbue it into your etzem mahos, into your core neshama, and then take it with you, and you can be carried by this. The same way Chanukah, 8 days l'mayla min hazman, l'mayla min hateva. It's not restricted, it's not bound by the limitations of space, of time. It's here to carry us, setting the stage for the rest of the year. We can have an aliyah, machmas, that yitzoltos in the or of a ner mitzvah Torah or of a Chanukah. And Yovan, the Greeks, they knew this secret. They knew that if they target, as Megillas Antiochus relates, yes, but they knew if they target not only Shabbos, not only Mila, but Chodesh, Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh, they know, is one of our secrets. Why? It's the sense of eschatkus, of renewal. We're always recreating ourselves. We're always renewing our experience in Torah. And Avodah writes the Medrash Lekav Tov in Maschon on Parak Val Posek Vav, Yubeinecha Kol Yom Kichadoshim. Every day, the Torah has to be approached with a newfound excitement, with a freshness and newness in our tefillah and our avodah. Every aspect of avodas Hashem, to approach it with a renewed spirit, a renewed glorious light. And that is chachus. That's what Rosh Chodesh represents. But if, as the Baruch shares with us in Orach Chaim Tov Reish Ayin, and when you have a zman of esrashlis avodah, you get lax, you slacken off. And the excitement wanes, and it becomes mitzvahs anoshim l'mada, and you merely perform the mitzvahs in a monotonous, perfunctory fashion. Then Hashem says what? Then Yovan can attack. Renew that spirit, renew the fighting spirit, and you bet they did. The Chashmonoim, they renewed that fighting resiliency, that spirit, that lofty spirit that everyone in Klal Yisrael possesses. And we took that spirit, that newfound koach, that new fresh energy, and we lit a new menorah, a new light, a light that's going to provide for us that inspiration to say, take the energy, take the excitement, light your neshamas on fire this Chanukah, rekindle those lofty neshamas like never before, and let's maximize this man of being mechanech of the rest of the year, and indeed the rest of our lives. Let's take the or, the spirit, the shvach, the hodah, and the hallel of what this Chanukah is all about. Thank you, Baruch Levine and the Choshva musical accompaniment, for helping carry, lift off this night, the 6th night of Chanukah, and to be making us kedeboy to Paris adequately for a fantastic, uplifting, a most elevated and meaningful year up ahead. Yeshakayach, without further ado, welcome, Baruch Levine.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Feiner. Levine, thank you very much, everyone. I've been to this shul so many times, never though in an official capacity to sing and to take part of such a moment. But the White Shul has a name that goes far and wide, much further than where I live in Waterbury, Connecticut, of Mevakshay Hashem, people that are truly growing in Ruchnius, and it's a real pleasure to be here. Let's start this Chanukah Kumzitz, of course, with Ala Nisim, and thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the Nisim He did for us then. Vayomim Aheim Bazman Hazeh. Thank you. 3 nights ago, I'm sitting at home, and somebody sends me an awful sounding demo of someone trying to sing the song Chasoif. And I'm trying to figure out who it was, and the message I got back was, that was you 25 years ago. Maybe we'll put it on the Shul's website after, for the members only. Anyways, the song I wrote, I was learning in Yeshiva's Taras Moshe in Yerushalayim. We had just lit the Chanukah Neres, and it came time to learn Musar Seder. And it was very hard to learn Musar Seder on Chanukah. And I decided to take a little bit in the Siddur, take a look at the words of Ma'is Sur, and I noticed a pattern. I noticed that we talk about the Arba Galuyos that we were in, Mitzrayim, and Bavel, and Edom, and Yavan, and then we end with this tefillah, and I just knew it, Chasoif, Zera, Yakot, what does it mean? And I looked a little deeper, and the words really, I guess that's how we write every song, is that the words sang something to me. That after we start describing what we've been through, we tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's enough. Ki archa lanu ha'yeshua, v'ein kates l'me'ara. It's too much already. Hakim lanu ra'yeshiva. It's time for the ultimate geula. What a tefillah that we say. Let's sing that song here together. as we're here doing our Chanukah set, we know that the Yom Tov of Chanukah, we're also commemorating, celebrating the Chanukah HaMishkan, and we know the famous words, Bilvadi Mishkan Evne. Even though today we are away from our big Beis HaMikdash, the real Mishkan, but it's inside of each and every one of us.
As I was singing Mo's Tzur tonight, I was reminded of a story, a well-known story from Reb Shmelka Schmitzler. He was one of those Jews who kept the spirits of the Jews alive in the darkest of times. The Jews that were encamped in the Bergen-Belsen camp had all but given up hope. And he was the one to inspire them to live one more day, one more day. And it was coming Chanukah time, and he saw how depressed, how all his fellow inmates had lost all hope. And he realizes that what he needs, if he's going to have any hope to rekindle the energy, to allow the Jews to live on, it's going to be, he has to find a way to light Chanukah. And it's Rosh Chodesh Kislev, and he starts trying to figure out, is there any possible way that I'm going to be able to light Chanukah licht? He asks everyone he bumps into. Do you have any ideas, any way of smuggling oil, smuggling wicks, something? But day after day, no one has any ideas, and his inquiries are just met with laughter. You're going to light Chanukah licht? And it was the day before Chanukah, and it was his job to go to all the barracks, Rachmana litzlan, and to carry out the corpses of those that didn't make it the night before. And he was told that someone had passed in one of the farther barracks out, and he starts walking towards the barrack towards the very edge of the camp. And as he gets to the outskirts of the camp, he feels that his foot trips on a little hole in the ground, and he looks down and he sees that something was buried there. And he begins to dig and uncover, and he sees it's a little jar of oil. Little jar of oil, 8 wicks wrapped beautifully with 8 cups. And he can't believe it. The Rebbeinu Shalom has listened to his prayers. How is it possible? But he figures someone must have hid it here. He's not going to take someone else's Chanukah licht. So he stays there the entire day waiting to see if anyone comes back to get it, and no one comes back. He asks around, does anyone know whose Chanukah licht, whose oil this is, whose wicks? No one knows anything about it. That night, with broken, depressed Jews gathered around him, he makes the brachos of Lahadlik Ner Shel Chanukah She'asa Nisim, and he says that we, at that moment, felt in the darkest of places, we felt that we had our own Chanukah Nes. We were rejuvenated. We felt that we had a kiss from the Rebbeinu Shalom. He was hugging us, telling us that we were going to get out. And for decades, he says, I had no idea where that oil had come from. It wasn't for decades later. I was in the United States, and I was sitting with an old friend, the Satmar Rebbe. The Satmar Rebbe mentioned almost tangentially, I feel so bad. I had been preparing for Chanukah licht, and just the day before Chanukah, I was released, I was freed from the camps. I didn't know what to do, who to give it to, so I buried it. But all these years I felt guilty that someone in the camps could have lit Chanukah licht. But they just didn't know where to look for it. Shmulka turns to his friend, Satmar Rebbe, and says, those Chanukah licht that kept the fire of the Jews going. I was thinking Maoz Tzur. Maoz Tzur speaks about the national great Yeshua, Ki Arucha Lana Yeshua, the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to provide for us a tremendous Yeshua. But I noticed that Maoz Tzur is a very personal tefillah. Maoz Tzur Yeshua Si, my Yeshua. Everything's mine. Ma'os Sur Yeshua Si. It's my Yeshua. I'm turning to the Ribono Shel Olam in a very intimate way. I'm asking the Ribono Shel Olam b'lashon noichach, you, tikoin beis tefillah si. It's not just about the Jewish people at large, but each and every one of us. Each and every one of us experiences personal Yeshuas, our personal Chanukah. Those are the days that we sing out to the Ribono Shel Olam for our personal Yeshuas. V'hu keili v'chai goyali. The Ribono Shel Olam is my personal Ribono Shel Olam. He provides me with my personal Yeshua Si. And it's those small Yeshuas that reinforce for us V'hu keili v'chai goyali.
You feel like I want to teach my Talmidim not just Gemara and Chumash, but I want to teach them the meaning of some great songs, which are really tefillos. So a few years ago, this song Yadati came out. Beautiful song, the whole world is singing, also along the theme of Amunah that we're discussing here tonight. And very complicated words, hard Hebrew, tefillah written by the Oyev Yisrael, the Abdurav. So we asked someone to do a little bit of a loose translation to have the children understand what they're singing. And Torah Masara put it out, and I want to sing that here together tonight. Yadati.
The Gemara shares with us in the Chanukah, at the end of the third parak, Moshe Marasha Kilas Yaakov. Yiddish children can be Yiddish children because of the time, the care, the attention that parents devote to putting into raising their children to be mechanech their children. On the heels of what we mentioned earlier, Chanukah Loshen Chinuch, it doesn't come as any surprise that not only is the Loshen of Chanukah, as Rabbeinu Bachai writes in Kadakemach, a Loshen of Chonuch Lenar, but Chanukah itself is Gematria 89, Gematria Taf, a reference, of course, to the young children. taking a peek at the Alanisim of Chanukah, B'meimatas Yov ben Yochanan. And we don't talk about Mordechai's lineage. And we don't delineate the ancestry of an Esther. It's simply B'mei Mordechai ve'Esther. But the Alanisim of Chanukah, B'meimatas Yov ben Yochanan Kohen Gadol. And take note, V'yachakach, Habo v'anecha l'dvir b'yisech. And yet again, we turn the spotlight on the Banim. And Mos Tzur, B'nei Vina Yemei Shmo. Chanukah Loshen Chinuch, V'yachakach Bo V'anecha, B'meimatas Yov ben Yochanan. Chanukah 89, Taf 89, what's with the Banim? Yevanim tried to destroy the continuity of the Jewish people. Let's get rid of their Shema, and let's rid them of their Torah Tzivul emotion. Chanukah, therefore, is a time we want to be Masaki. We want to reinforce those filial bonds, those tight family connections. Meimatas Yov ben Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Abo v'anecha b'nei Vina, Chanukah Loshen Chinuch. This is a time. And when the children are off and off from yeshiva, off from school, and regardless, when it comes to lighting the menorah, we know it's something that's such quality family time. And the children encircle their parents and they light the menorahs together. Thus reinforcing night after night the importance of Jewish continuity of perpetuity. Yovan says, let's rid the world of Kedusha. Get rid of their Torah. Let's rid their children, their offspring, of their Yiddishkeit. Along comes Chanukah now after we vanquished our Yevanite opponents. And we're going to stress ever so emphatically. Children gather around, we're going to light the menorah together. Let's notice that the light of the Torah that shines and that connects us all, and let's be mispalel for Erlecha, Yosher, Dika, Yiddish children. There's a great kuntras published recently, Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein Shlita. And the very last story in the kuntras Vavei Amudim of Kislev Tavshin Pei Aleph is a story that Rav Zilberstein shares, wherein he heard from a mechanech in the United States who told him, Rav Zilberstein, I have a boy in my class, he's a Mitsuyan Sheva Mitsuyanim, he's top of the line, Aleph, the best child in the class. He's incredibly matzliach, his love of Torah is simcha, and for Torah, for mitzvahs, it's unbelievable, I don't know how he got this way. And then he tells Rav Zilberstein, I found out that his mother's a Gioris. His mother converted to Yiddishkeit years back, and he couldn't understand. The number one child in his class in elementary school was none other than the son of a Gioris. And he couldn't hold himself back, and when it came to the PTA, he's meeting with the mother, and he says, do you mind if I ask you, your son is so exemplary, mitos. Simchas HaTorah, Avos HaTorah, how did you raise him? How did you do it? How did you make him so miyuchad, so unique, so special? And she says, I want you to know my son was not born Jewish. And when I learned the halacha of the Gemara in Ksuvas Yud Aleph and Aleph that a ger koten mapila so and that's based in a young boy, doesn't really have the level of knowledge to think properly on his own. So the halacha is that we have a based in and we take him, we're tovalim. But Amr Rav Yosef, the Gemara shares, Higdilu Yechola Nimchos. When you have a boy who is born a non-Jew, and Beis Din converts him, why? Because his mother brings him in front of the Beis Din and says, I want to become Jewish and I want my son likewise to become a Jew. But when he becomes bar mitzvah, we give him the chance. We give him a question and say, you can now decide to become a guy and live the rest of your life like a guy, like a non-Jew. You can be makabel the mitzvahs, you can espouse Yiddishkeit. The choice rests solely in your hands. So the Erlacha, sincere Giora, says, I knew when I was told by my son in front of the Beis Din. I knew that it's going to come years later and he's going to be given that opportunity. I'm to decide, you know what, I don't want to be a Yid. So I knew that I had to instill the home with an unbelievable Avos HaTorah and an Avon Simcha for Yiddishkeit, for mitzvahs, for loving Hashem. And to make Shabbos so geschmack, Yontif was unbelievable. And any time in first grade, second grade, the Siddur party, the Chumash party, I went all out. I got him his favorite cake, his favorite ice cream, and the most delicious Sufganiyot, Chanukah, no Chanukah. I made sure that he fell in love with Hashem, that he fell in love with Hashem's Torah, with his mitzvahs, because I didn't want to take the slightest chance that when he gets to that age of 13, he might decide, you know what? I don't want to live as a Jew any longer. So I infused every day of our lives with an unbelievable simchas achayim, a love for Hashem, His Baruch, a love for His Torah. And the Rebbe figured out that's why the boy became such a mitzvah. Because this mother not only davened every single day, she made sure to make it the most levendig geschmack, simcha-filled home. And that boy grew up loving Torah, loving mitzvahs, rising quickly to the top of his class. And you bet when he became 13 years of age, oh boy, did he wholeheartedly embrace all of the Torah mitzvahs. We're about to head into a Baruch Levine Shlita classic. A song that has ignited all of our souls, that has kindled the spirits of Yidden worldwide. And mothers daven for the children every Friday night when they see the hour of the neighbor Shabbos. And Erlacha Yiddish Shemamas are davening for the children every single night. Rabbi Sai, but if you have a Chanukah, and Lirosam, we get to stare at those neighbors Chanukah with the family all around. Chanukah Chinuch, B'nai Bina, Bo Vanecha. Let's look to the children, the continuity, the Hemshech of Klal Yisrael. Make sure to infuse your home with the same simcha when you bring out the Geshmaka tasting lakis and those delicious, scrumptious Sufganiyot and Chanukah Masivas, and you go to these Chanukah parties in the home, yes, they're smaller this year than ever before. But when the family's around lighting, you see that simcha, the Geshmak, when a labor, the Geyontif. And be mechanech, the children, carry it forward. And make sure you infuse every single night of your children's lives with that same simcha, that same aura of Torah, with the aura of Yiddishkeit, with the Avos HaTorah, the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His unbelievable mitzvahs. Eibishter v'zakeni, to be Magalda, the most special body in the entire world, so that these Erlacha Helika children will carry us once and for all to His man. Mashiach Tzidkenu, Bias Kol Tzedek, Meir Rav Yameinu, Amen.
maybe it was a year ago, when I was approached by Boimi Olam to write another Vizakeni, and I told him I don't think it's possible. So I wasn't able to write the whole song. I needed help, besides help from others, and of course Yati Mishmaya. There's also a song that really, you know, our Mama Lashon, a little bit over here in America, is English. Our mother language is English. She just put out an English album called Off the Record of many 45 English songs. It's not a plug, you don't have to buy it. But if you enjoyed it, then... And I get a lot of feedback from children that the songs that really touch them, that reach them, are the English songs. So in a way, it's true, our Mama Lashon.
Iconic photographs, menorah photographs, that which was taken in the year 1932 by a Rebbetzin Rochel Posner, the photograph that all of us have seen. After her husband, Rebbe Kiva Baruch Posner, the Rav of Kiel, lights the Chanukah licht Erev Shabbos in the year 1932, she notices that through the window, flapping in the air, a flag bearing the Nazi Yimach Shemam swastika. Right outside her window, past her Chanukah licht, was their headquarters. And the truth is that this is not just a poignant point of contrast, but this in fact tells us the story of Chanukah. One could be bothered, one could ask why it is we're celebrating the Chanukahs Beis HaMikdash that took place on Al Yedei HaChashmonaim. It must have been quite a celebration at the time, but it's over so long ago, and the Beis HaMikdash has since been destroyed. But we have to ask ourselves a more basic question, and that is, why is it that the menorah became the centerpiece of the Chanukah story? Rabbi Feiner and I were discussing this afternoon, what happened to the Mizbeach? After all, when we dedicate Beis HaMikdash, when we dedicate a Mishkan in the Torah, it's always with a Mizbeach. Yes, a miracle happened with the menorah, but the primary celebration is that of Chanukah's Beis HaMikdash, which is about the Mizbeach. But the Ramban tells us that this dedication of this Beis HaMikdash was different. Ramban tells us that the Rebbeinu Shalom told Aaron HaKohen that your dedication of your Beis HaMikdash is going to be L'Dorei Doros. Every other Chanukah's HaMizbeach is going to be destroyed with the destruction of Beis HaMikdash, but Aaron, the Beis HaMikdash, the Chanukah's Beis HaMikdash that's done al Yedei your children through menorah will be L'Dorei Doros. It will outlive the Beis HaMikdash itself. Because your Chanukah's Beis HaMikdash, the dedication that took place at the time of the Chashmonaim was not just for the 200 years that the Beis HaMikdash would last, but it was meant to bring us through the darkest of goals. The only Yom Tiv where we mention all the Daled Goliyos in most surahs is Chanukah, because the Yom Tiv of Chanukah is not about Geula, but the Yom Tiv of Chanukah is maintaining hope during the dark goals. The Mefarshim tell us that the very first time we encounter the Pach Shemen is when Yaakov Avinu wakes up from the Malachim that are climbing and descending the ladder. And he takes some oil and he smears it on the Matzeva, and the Mefarshim tell us that was the Pach HaShemen. Because those Malachim, Olim v'Yardim, represented each of the Goliyos. And the Chanukah Licht tell the story of the Jews in Golus, and remind us that even though there are times where we're experiencing the Malachim Yardim, there will be a time where the Malachim once again are over. Even though now we're lighting the Chanukah Licht across the Dalet Kanfois HaAretz, in every corner of the world there will be a time once again when that menorah of the Chashmonaim is lit so clearly, so powerfully, b'chatzeris kodshech. Chanukah is a time of hope. Chanukah is not just about the Pach HaShemen that lasted, but as Rav Yaakov Emden says, perhaps the greatest miracle of all time. The Jewish people, like that Pach HaShemen, should have died out long ago. But the Hadlokas Neiros of Ner Chanukah of the Chashmonaim continue to flicker as we turn to the Rebbeinu Shalom and ask Him, once and for all, V'hareinu b'vinyonoi, v'samcheinu b'sikunoi.
Samcheinu about a synagogue that they burned down, and the crying that was heard beneath the smoke. But Sadie made us laugh, Sadie made us sing, Sadie made us Kiddush Friday night. And Sadie, oh my Sadie, how I love him so. And Sadie used to teach me wrong from right. But Sadie made us laugh, Sadie made us sing, Sadie made us sing face of night. And Sadie, oh my Sadie, how I love him so. And Sadie used to teach me wrong from right. I'm a very tired old and worn out man, and my eyes have long been blind. Most things that people say to me just seem to slip my mind. Oh, but the suffering and painful time I've heard here long are still as clear upon my memory as the numbers on my What will become of all the memories? Are they to scatter in the dust in the breeze? Who will stand before the world, knowing what to say when the very last that I've heard fades away? What will become of all the memories? Are they to scatter with the dust in the breeze? Yeah, one thought gives me comfort. It's all that I have left. Oh, I know that God in heaven won't forget.
This year due to Corona. I remember years back when we were living in Eretz Yisrael, my wife returned to the apartment one night. She said she had a student on Chanukah in the seminary wherein she was teaching. And she said, the student said, Rebbetzin, fine, I'm very machmir. This year, Chanukah, I'm going to make sure to eat a sufganiyah corresponding to how many days of Chanukah we have. So the first night she ate one sufganiyah. The third night she ate 3. By the 8th night they couldn't get her in the door anymore. So why am I thinking of sufganiyot? I'll tell you, my wife surprised me a few nights ago. She came back and said she purchased from one of the local bakeries a sufganiyah, decorated, adorned with all nice culinary delights atop this regular looking donut. And I said, okay, it's nice, it's tasty, it's sweet. Tell me, how much did it cost? She says it was $5. I says, $5 for a donut? And Rabbi said, I made sure to enjoy every bite as much as I could. But my wife says to me, Eitan, I don't want you to think I spent too much on a donut. You see, I called my sister in Lakewood She said in Lakewood they have sufganiyot for $14.95 a piece. I said, what do they do? Sprinkle some gold on top? $15 for a donut. Moray Rabbi said, what gives us the geschmack in life? Writes the Heilige Chavetz Chaim, yes, he has his separate hesper in the introduction to the Likutei Halachos and Kodshim. But a number of other Sfarim cite in the name of the Heilige Chavetz Chaim, Zechat Tzadik V'Kodesh Levracha. Why in the world would David HaMelech compare the Torah to Dvash and Nufus Sufa? Writes David HaMelech, the Noam Zemiras Yisrael. He tells us in Tehillim Kapitel Yates and Pasuk Yud Aleph that the Torah is Mesukim Midvash V'Nofes Tzufim, and the Torah is sweeter than honey and the drippings of honeycombs. Bringing all the jelly donuts in the world, all the peklach that our incredible youth program gave out yesterday, and every single drop of Torah HaKadosha is sweeter than even the best tasting honey in the world. Why is that? Explains the Heilige Chavetz Chaim. Because you bring over a child and you give him his favorite candy, you bring him into the candy store, tell him, Yanko, pick anything you want. He's got the licorice, he's got the tangy taffies, he's got the jawbreakers, sweeter than sweet, give him some honey. But you know what? After a few jawbreakers and lemon heads and red hots and tangy taffies and candy rings, after a little while he gets sick of it. How many spoonfuls of honey can a regular person consume? Hamashenkin writes the Chavetz Chaim, the Torah is Mesukim Amidvash V'Nofes Sufim. Because every new vart, every new geschmack ha'ara, every additional insight, every new outlook and perspective into a pasuk in Chumash, so many mefarshei HaTorah, every new insight into a Mishnah on the Hair and Einfeld and a Daf and Gemara and a Daf Yomi and a Ischachas, every new ha'ara, every new Dvar Torah is sweeter than sweet. You fall in love more and more every single day. So asked Baruch Leib Steinman, Zechat Tzadik Levracha, why is it that not all our children, not all of us today, appreciate the depth, the profundity of the sweetness contained in every precious, hallowed word of Torah HaKadosha? How come we don't appreciate it? And our Zoberstein writes in Tivcha Yabiu Pashas Yisra, and the Baruch Leib Steinman answered his question. Ask yourself and ask your children when you get up in the morning, do you say the bracha and berachas HaTorah of Aharab Na Hashem Elokeinu with kavana ritzuya, with kavana amitas? And when you say V'harav Na, do you ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I want to taste the sweetness, the arivas, the mesikas HaTorah, the Archaim HaKadosh writes in Kisavo, Chavav Yud Aleph, if we would know and begin to comprehend the unfathomable, inconceivable mesikas and arivas HaTorah, and all of the gold and silver and all the United Arab Emirates and all the Dubai, luxury vacations and all the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis and $15 jelly donuts would not mean a thing to us. Because all we really ought to care about is the arevas and the stikas HaTorah. So we'll hear a Baruch Levine V'harav Na shortly. But first he's going to take us into the Torah scroll song. And he and A.B. Romberg just recently penned a beautiful take on those Torahs, the Sifrei Torah, and our Batik and Asiyas and Batim and Rosh is crying out, where's Klal Yisrael? Why the Batik and Asiyas, Batim and Rosh is not zocha to be filled up? Do we appreciate the sweetness of davening b'tzibur, davening in a shul or the mikdash ma'at? Do we yearn, do we long insatiably to return to our illustrious Batik and Asiyas and Batim and Roshas? Or are we happy in our outdoor minyanim? It's convenient. Perhaps we like davening with the squirrels and the crickets. Perhaps we like just going out. Who needs to get dressed up for shul? Let's just throw on a sweatshirt, maybe a pair of Crocs. Flip-flops. Rachmana litzlan. Tie. Who needs a tie? Convenience. Let's just go daven in an outdoor minyan because it's convenient. Again? Those concerns, underlying health conditions, safety, health reasons, that's a whole different category. But we're making Yiddishkeit convenient, what feels good to me. Let me share with you an unbelievable insight of Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. You see, we lived for years in Shari Chesed. And at Shari Chesed, we always knew the shmua around town was, Rosh Shlomo Zalman explained, you know why the minhag is to eat Sufganiyot and Chanukah? And because we want to be Machai, we want to thereby obligate ourselves in the recitation of an Alamichyo. Because in benching, we don't specify the Mizbeach. A brain of Foshus, it's noticeably absent. Only in the Brocha Mein Sholosh and the Nusach of an Alamichyo do we emphasize Al Mizbechachav Yal Heichalecha. Even before the Heichal, we mentioned the Mizbeach, Chanukah, Mizbeach. Explain to Shlomo Zalman, let's eat as many jelly donuts as you eat. You don't have to eat 8 on 6 tonight. 8 in 2 nights. You don't need that many. But let's be Machayim and Alamechim. But then I saw where Shlomo Zalman really fleshes out the idea. And in his wonderful Sefer on the Moedim Alicha Shlomo and Inoni Chanukah Perek Yud Zayin and Sif Yud Aleph, and a footnote at the bottom they cite for the Rishimus Miksav Yad. Our Shlomo Zalman said, and they write, they think he said in the name of a Godol Echad. You know why we eat Sufganiyot? Because yes, the Yevonim were Timu Kol Hashmanim, and it's all about Shemen. And we were Matar, we found the Pach Echad, and we were Matar. All the clay sharis, all the clay mikdash, but one. Because writes the Gemara for the Zorah Daf Nun Beis and Beis. And they defiled, they profaned the Avnei HaMizbeach, and there's no way, they didn't know. Allah Yodu Chazal relate, they did not know how to be Matar of the precious stones that the Greeks defiled of the Mizbeach, and they didn't know what to do with them, and Meila Gonzu, and they put them into Genisa. They hit Staru Akach. My precious stones of the Heilig of Mizbeach. I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you so much. They were mitzvah. That's what gave them sign. They didn't care about the Lamborghinis and the Porsches and the latest model Tesla or Lexus. Didn't interest them seeing the skyscrapers of an Arab nation flying out on a luxury vacation, $5,000, $10,000 a pop, to go see Dubai. They didn't need to spend $15 on a jelly donut. They didn't need $300 bottles of schnapps, $70,000 watches. You know what they wanted? They wanted the avonim of the Mizbeach, and they couldn't have them. Amela writes of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, eat Sufganiyot and indeed be Machayev the Alamichya, the Baruch and Sholosh. Why? So that even before you make mention of Ali Chalecha, you can mention Al Mizbechacha, and not stand to highlight the Mizbeach, which is what Chanukah revolves around. Chanukah's a Mizbeach, but to remember that tsar that they had, that they lost those sacred precious stones of the Mizbeach, and they had to put them into Genisa, and they missed them, and they would stare and relive and reenact it and show Hashem the longing. I wish I could have those precious stones back again. Al Mizbechacha v'Alei Chalecha. Morav Rabbi said, what do we mitzvah for? What do we long for Chanukah? We miss the Masibas with all the meats, tables, all the Sufganiyot and Latkes galore. We miss the Chanukah vacations. Or do we miss having a base of Mikdash? Do we miss a Mizbeach? Do we miss the Korban Talmud? I said this last Tuesday night, and I'll say it again, and I hope it gets sent around to as many Yidden as possible. Because I'm afraid. I'm mamash afraid for Klal Yisrael. And because Mora Abaisai, B'mheira Yavu Mashiach Tzidkenu, Biaskol Tzedek B'mheira V'yameinu, there's going to be a Beis HaMikdash, and he's coming mighty soon, Mashiach Tzidkenu. And the Beis HaMikdash is going to come down, hopefully like Rashi and Taisus and Sukkah. Eish Min HaShamayim, Hashem's Bayi is the Binyan Bayi Shlishi. And all the Yidden are going to run to say, what do I want more than anything in the world? I want to daven inside Hashem's home. And a Paschal, I'm afraid, is going to come out and say, those who are longing to get back into my Mikdash Mat, and to see not just the one Sefer Torah for your outdoor minyan in your small Aron Kodesh, but to see the glorious Aron Kodesh with all the elegant Torah scrolls, and the Ksorim, and all the beautiful silver, and the Choshen, and surrounding yourself with the Sforim in your base Medrash and your base Knesses, and davening with Tzibur in the Mikdash Mat, God's going to say, all those who yearn to daven in the base Knesses during Corona, all those who yearn to long to go back to the Shuls, to the Botim and Roshas, to the Yeshivas, you can come inside my house because that's where you yearn to be. But those who prefer davening with the flip-flops and the Crocs, and the sweatshirts and going tieless on a Shabbos and Yom Tov, and let's have a glorious Kiddush outside. Outside, no problem. We'll put walls around the tent. We'll add heaters. We'll keep the crickets and squirrels out. But Klal Yisrael, those you wanted to daven outside, there's plenty of space to daven in my courtyard plaza by the Kaisel. The Shekhinah will have moved inside the base of Mikdash. You want to daven outside? God will make plenty of room for those by the Kaisel. Those by the Kotel Plaza, filling up the Jewish quarter. But if you wanted all along to come inside Hashem's bias, where the Shekhinah is in Golas and in Mikdash Shemad, you want to come back to Hashem's home and use His Torah scrolls, not just one but many, to see them, to revere them, to be surrounded by the Sforim in the base Medrash, to be surrounded by all the Yidden you want to come inside. There'll be plenty, ample space in the base of Mikdash and the Binyan Bayis Shlishi for every single one of you. By side, if you can't come inside, we understand. But make sure you have an incessant and unquenchable thirst. We want to get back to use all the Torah scrolls. We want to get back to see the Torah scrolls, to sing Eitz Chaim in front of them, to use all the Sforim in the base Medrash. We want to come back into our Mikdash Shema'at together, with a unified, cohesive Klal Yisrael b'yachad together as one. And may we daven all together as one in Hashem's bias. The Binyan Bayis Shlishi from Mashiach Tzidkenu. Meira b'yameinu, amen b'yameinu.
And now again I cry out in despair. What happened to the precious sounds of prayer? Where are the lively sessions of vibrant Torah sparks? I wonder in the silence and house and bring him to the cheder where he licks the honey off the letters of the Aleph base. And with tears they pray to heaven for their precious little gem. May the Torah always be the sweet, the Hadevno Hashem. But as the boy grows older and Gemara leads his day, that passion for his Torah learning slowly fades away. For he struggles with each sugya, and he ties
songs of Hallel v'Haidah, I was just reminded of the lyrics of that song that we just sang together. I believe that you wrote in the midst of Corona. And I remember being struck time and time again by that one line. And I hope that they miss me as much as I miss them. That the Rebbeinu Shalom was testing us to see, do we miss them? Do we miss him as much as he misses us? The Yevanim grew out of an environment, the Bach says, of nisrashlu b'mitzvahs. We were keeping mitzvahs. We were davening 3 times a day. We were doing our daf yomi. But nisrashlu b'mitzvahs. But we didn't miss the Rebbeinu Shalom. We checked the boxes. There's no passion. There's no energy. When the Rebbeinu Shalom sees a lack of energy, a lack of passion, a lack of excitement, he tests us. Are we going to miss him as much as he misses us? The Yevanim went on a campaign, Lahashkicham Teirasecha. Says the Sfas Emes, how do you make someone forget? How does one possibly embark upon such a mission of Lahashkicham Teirasecha? Says the Sfas Emes, take a look at the Saramashkim. V'lo yizocher Saramashkim es Yosef vayishko cheyu. When do we forget? We forget when we don't remember what a person has done for us. The Saramashkim forgot Yosef because he forgot the kindness that Yosef had done for him. So he no longer felt indebted, and then it's easy to forget. L'hashgiach teirasecha, the Yevanim wanted to be mashgiach, they wanted us to forget the Torah. What that means is, they went on a campaign to make us not realize, not to remember what the Rebbeinu Shalom has done and does for us. The only way, lahashkicham teirasecha, is if we fail to appreciate what the Rebbeinu Shalom does. So come Chazal and say, if the way we forget teirasecha is to ignore what the Rebbeinu Shalom does for us, we're going to make Shmoina Yimei Chanukah Elu Lehoido Yisu Lahalel, to sing thanks to the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Rambam says we say 8 days Lehoido Yisu Lahalel, not just to thank the Rebbeinu Shalom, Laharais Ulegalois, to reveal Hanes. Singing Hallel v'Haidah to the Rebbeinu Shalom is not just a celebration. It's an exercise in introspection. We think about all the tremendous brachas that the Rebbeinu Shalom has given us. So often we focus on what we don't have. The Rebbeinu Shalom deserves for 8 days us to focus on what we do have and to cry out in Shir, in Hallel v'Zimra, Shir v'Sheva, to ensure we never forget what he's done and what he constantly does for us. That will guarantee that we'll never be lahashkicham teirasecha. Baruch, let's continue, lead us in Hallel v'Haidah to the Rebbeinu Shalom.
Oh
I mentioned a couple of months ago, somebody shared with me that he finally figured out that Shnas Tavshin Pei, last year stood for Tehei Shnas the Pits. But Tavshin Pei Aleph instead stands for Tehei Shnas Pandemic Over. And now somebody sends me today perhaps a more emistic shot to Tavshin Pei Aleph. Tavshin Pei Aleph, Tavshin Pei and Aleph is, of course, Gematria Sachakol 781. And 781 is Gematria Teshua, the year of his salvation. And what's going to bring us to a Teshua, to an Allah Nisim, thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu not only for the Yeshuas, the Doris from time immemorial, but for the Teshua, the salvation, the great one, the Gula Shlema V'Yasida that awaits us. It's the 36 candles of the Chanukah menorah. And thus, not surprisingly, 781 Gematria Tavshin Pei Aleph is Gematria Teshua, and Gematria exactly Lamed Vav Deiros Chanukah. Likewise, 781. And after receiving that email, I took a look at a Gewaldige Sefer called Maaseh Choshev. And he writes that 781 is also Gematria Parshas Vayelech, Perek Lamed Aleph Pasuk Vav, Hashem Elokecha, Hu Aholech Imach, Lo Yarbecha V'Lo Ya'azveka. This year, Shnas Tavshin Pei Aleph, Gematria 781, and Met Hashem is the year for the Teshua Shalema, the Teshua Amitis. The year on the heels of our Lamed Vav Neiros Chanukah, and equaling exactly Hashem Elokecha. Hashem, your God, He will walk with you. He will never loosen His grip, and He will never abandon you. And it's also Gematria, my friends, Melech al Kol Yisrael. 781, you bet, it's this year, Tavshin Pei Aleph. It's going to be the year Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach, of Hashem Yisbarach, V'haya b'yomahu yeh Hashem Echodesh V'achad, when Hashem is Melech, and not Stam the king over a select few. He will be Melech, Al Kol Yisrael, B'diyuk Gematria 781. Ahuvai V'rei, if we want Hashem to be the Melech, and we've been davening for it ever so passionately and fervently throughout our lives. If it's going to happen this year, it can only happen if we want Hashem to be the Melech, Al Kol Yisrael. We have to be together as one. Mika Amcha Yisrael Goy Echad Ba'aretz. Ki Ish Echad B'Leiv Echad. Then and only then will Hashem be the Melech. Melech Memlam and Chof, backwards Kulam. You know when He'll be the Melech? The lave of Am Yisrael, as the Rambam writes in Ochos Malachim. We can finally figure it out and get together as one. And drop the polarizations. And drop all the machlokes. Ashkenazi, Sfardi, Teimani, Eitat Mizrach, Alabavitch, Satmar, Belzer. Modern Orthodox, centrist Orthodoxy. Hasidish, Misnagdish. We're all together as one. Chanukah reminds us to turn to Avadria, Perek Aleph Pasuk Ches. Avahaya Beis Yaakov Leish, Beis Yosef Lahava, Beis Esav Lakash. And you want to burn up the Kash of Esav? It can only happen on your day, the Eish of Yaakov. All right, it's the Heilige Shla of Yeshaya Levi Harowitz, the Shla Kodesh. I leave you tonight with this unbelievable remez of the Heilige Shla. You want to burn up the Kash, Kub Shin Rashi Tevis, Kina and Sinna of Esav. There's only one way to get rid of all that envy and all that hatred, all the animosity. Rahman al-Itzlani, Giyasman. Bisnagdish, Hasidish, Ashkenazi, Sfardi, Lubavitch, Satmar, Tziyani. It doesn't make enough Gemina. Yid is a Yid is a Yid. How are we going to get rid of once and for all the kid in the sinner? Ayadei, the Eish of Yaakov. Yaakov, who gave us Shema Yisrael Hashem L'Kirishim Echad. Yaakov bebechinas echad. Yaakov is the one who tells us the secret ingredient. Eish Rashi Tevas Ava and Shalom. The Ava and the Shalom that Yaakov worked endlessly and tirelessly to inculcate upon the hearts and the minds of his dear children. The shift take come, my dear Shvatim. B'nai Yisrael, do away with the kinah and the sinah. Promote, foster, nurture endless and unconditional Ava and Shalom. Turn to the Lamed Vav Neiros Chanukah 781. Turn to the menorah, Miksha Achas, made out of one solid piece. All the Neiros facing one direction, the Ner Ma'aravi. Neiros bringing in what? Shalom into the Beis HaMikdash. The same way a woman lights the Shabbos candles to usher in Shalom bias into the Jewish home. Ava and Shalom will once and for all do away with the kinah and the sinah. Mi kamcho Yisrael gayecha ba'aretz. Ki yesh echad b'leiv echad. Let's get together once and for all. Let's love one another with a never-fading, a never-ending smile, warm greetings, a warm embrace, endless and unconditional Ava and Shalom. And we'll be zeicha once and for all to the Teshua and to Hashem Yisparach as the Melech, Al Kol Yisrael, Meir of Yameinu, Amen
We'll end the way we started, a little Chanukah Nigunim, a little Simcha. Thank you so much, Rabbi Feiner, Rabbi Neuberger. Thank you so much, Aryeh Kunstler, Mordechai Lubavitz on guitar, Yaakov Zainis on keyboard and sound. Thank you very much, Ashley Freeman. This is amazing. Thank you.